So good afternoon and welcome to SUNY Plattsburgh. We hope you have gotten moved in already and okay, and that you're excited to start a semester. My name's Allison Swift-Dutney. I work as the Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life and Project Help, but I also have responsibilities in the Center for Student Involvement with New Student and Family Orientation. And part of that experience is some educational programming that we do every year at the beginning of the semester during opening week or opening weekend. And so today our topic is going to be a presentation by our Title IX office. And so I will in a moment turn it over to Zyaijah Nadler from the Title IX office for her to introduce herself. But before we do that, I do want to mention that the chat feature is going to be disabled during this session, but that you will be able to ask questions if you use the Q&A feature. So if you go to the bottom of your screen next to the participants icon, you should see something that says Q&A. So as you have questions, type them in there and we will attempt to answer as many as we can. So I will turn it over to Zyaijah.
Thank you, Allison. So hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining you all. I'm definitely wishing you a great and healthy semester as you embark on this journey to SUNY Plattsburgh, whether you are staying here on campus or you're joining us from somewhere else. Welcome. As Allison said, my name is Zyaijah Nadler. I am the Violence Prevention, Education, and Outreach Coordinator here at SUNY Plattsburgh's Title IX office. Today we will be discussing sexual violence, interpersonal violence, stalking, as well as covering what your rights, protections, as well as accommodations are available to you on campus and off campus as a student here at SUNY Plattsburgh. As Allison said, if you do have any questions, I invite you to ask them. I'm going to be adding information into the chat at the end. We invite you to fill out a post-workshop survey. It's going to include my name, today's date, and the link. And truly, please take your time going over the survey. It's just a few questions to allow us to let us know what information may be lacking from this presentation, what you may have enjoyed, and more information as well. So as a disclaimer, because we are talking about some uncomfortable topics and violence in general, we also wanted to have a disclaimer here to let you know that if you need at any point in time additional support, you can reach out to our confidential reporting options, such as the Health Center, the Counseling Center, Stop Domestic Violence, which is a local agency that we work very closely with, as well as Sexual Assault Services, who works with Planned Parenthood, and we work very closely with them as well. We also work in conjunction with RAIN, which is a national network who provides 24/7 hotlines, as well as a texting app. So you can text through them, through the RAIN app, and connect with either a crisis response individual, crisis agent, advocate, as well as connect with either other victims of any kind of violence that they've encountered. If you have any questions, again, feel free to email me after the presentation if there are anything lingering or you didn't get the chance to ask today. So just an overview of things that we're going to cover. You're going to find out today who's in the office aside from myself. You're going to talk a little bit about definitions and laws. We're going to talk about reporting options and accommodations available to you as students. We're going to discuss your Student Bill of Rights based on New York State 129B. We're also going to talk about affirmative consent. What does it mean? What does it look like? As well as involvement opportunities. We have tons on campus aside from our virtual events that we will be hosting throughout the semester. So we definitely want you to come and join us in any way that you can. To start off, so we have our Title IX coordinator. What their role is to do intakes of reports of sexual interpersonal violence and discrimination. They also ensure that they give you the resources and accommodations you have the right to, whether you are a responding individual or someone who has experienced violence firsthand. You have, again, the rights to accommodations that we'll talk about. They also oversee all numbers in terms of reportings and puts out annual reports based on reports that we get in the office. And their name is Butterfly Blaze Boyer. Aside from them, we also have Autumn Bennett, who is our Title IX and non-discrimination investigator in the office. They conduct all investigations for the campus judicial charges, as well as the Title IX investigations. They also collaborate very closely with local law enforcement and state police in case there's anyone who wants to do a conjunction case. We also report all findings to the student conduct in order to have the final hearing so that they can review it and give the decisions of sanctions out to those who have violated our terms. Lastly is me in the office. Again, I'm the Violence Prevention, Education, and Outreach Coordinator. I'm the one who connects people with resources if they have questions about the office, about the process that is at hand. We also provide, again, educational workshops outside of those that you are mandated to, such as this one. We also have a lot of internship and different education opportunities. So if you're someone who is looking to get involved on campus and you're passionate about stopping and preventing sexual violence, domestic violence, and discrimination, feel free to reach out to me. And we also have a bystander intervention program. So that teaches you all how to intervene in something that may be dangerous and that to get you more protections and to stop something from occurring before it occurs. Things that we focus on in the office are a few of our laws, whether that's federal laws and state laws. So we're going to cover that in a few next of the slides. So federal laws, we're thinking about Title IX itself. We'll even talk about the new regulations and what has SUNY Plattsburgh done in order to protect you with the new regulations in place. We'll talk about the Clery Act, as well as the Violence Against Women Act, which tells us how we have to report things to the campus, as well as how information has to be public. We also have state law that we abide by. So New York State Article 129B, also known as Enough is Enough law, in addition to Gender Expression and Non-Discrimination Acts, also known as GENDA. So Title IX itself was passed in 1972. Again, we'll talk about the new regulations, but how it started and the reason why our office is called Title IX is because this was the first law to pass in order to put protections in place for colleges, as well as K through 12 to protect students from discrimination based on sex, as well as any form of sexual harassment, sexual violence, and interpersonal violence. This applies to all students, faculty, and staff. This makes sure that you know that the institution has an obligation to intervene, prevent, and remedy any information that we have as it relates to discrimination and violence, to make sure that you have the resources available to you that are within your rights, to provide pregnancy protections, which includes academic accommodations for any needs that come out of one being pregnant, as well as breastfeeding and pumping rights throughout campus as a student here. So one thing that we have done, because there are new amendments that changes and new regulations to the Title IX law, is that we have created a standalone policy. So in addition to Title IX policy, the institution itself has 3 different policies that you must abide to: our sexual violence policy, our interpersonal violence policy, as well as your student code of conduct. Which, whether or not you've read, you all agreed when you signed up for classes that you have received a document. So if you did not take the time to read your student code of conduct, I highly encourage you to read through that, because at the end of the day, whether you know it or not, you are held responsible to those standards that are written out in the student code of conduct. So it is important that you take the time to read over that information. Another reason that we've done this is because we don't know what the future holds for Title IX regulations and whether or not they will be reversed, which we are hopeful for, because there are a lot less protections for those who have experienced violence. So we want to make sure that you are still protected under Title IX, as well as New York State and the Clery Act. And we're going to talk about the differences now. So as mentioned, on the right-hand side, you will see our institutional policies and what does that mean for the campus at hand. So for example, the Title IX grievance policies under the new regulations does not cover study abroad programs, nor does it cover off-campus incidents that occur outside of educational programs and activities that are sponsored by the institution. Our institutional policies, on the other hand, will still cover these incidents. So anything that happens off campus or while one is studying abroad, you will be allowed to make a report about the incidents to, again, ensure that you're receiving help. Another thing that Title IX new regulations have done, it allows institutions across the nations to increase their timeline for investigations and formal complaints We have not changed it. The new change is 90 days. We did not agree to that. We are sticking by our 60-day, which we are allowed to do under 129B. And this is very important because we want to make sure that people are not lingering trying to figure out what they have going on with the case and what's happening. We want to make sure that they have that information. It changes the definition of sexual harassment to be severe, pervasive, objective, and offensive, as well as a situation that may be quid pro quo. So for instance, if you're in a class, which again, this is not allowed by any means, if you are experiencing it at any point in time, please report it to us. If you have a situation where you're feeling as though your grade will change based on you giving sexual favors to someone else, or someone telling you that if you give them sexual favors, they will increase your grade or they will remove an absence. That is not allowed under our sexual harassment and sexual violence policy by any means. It allows, under Title IX, we have advisors who are allowed to cross-examine. You'll learn a lot more about that through student conduct because they are the ones in charge of that, which is another office in campus aside from our own. Things that are similar between the two policies: it does not allow for informal resolution option for alleged rapes and or interpersonal violence such as dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. Informal resolutions can include mediations, so having you sit down and write or having you try to explain to the person who may have caused you harm. That is not allowed. That is something that you two as individuals can request, but it's very rare that we're going to allow that to happen. You're also allowed advisors to support and accompany you throughout your process the entire way through. So whether that be through intakes or your next steps and the process itself through student conduct, you are allowed someone. Your advisors can be a friend, they can be a family member, they can even be an attorney. That choice is left up to you, and you can have the answers and find out more information there. So again, I strongly encourage you to look over these policies. You can find them on the website. If you go to our Title IX webpage, you will also see on the overview, if you scroll down a bit, you will see more information and a Q&A based on the questions about people that may have based on the new regulations, and see what the school is doing to make sure that we are still protecting you no matter where you are. So again, another act that we must follow that's a federal level act is the Clery Act. This makes sure that you know all information is public information as it relates to statistics and reports that we get to the office. So if you go again to the Title IX webpage and click on college initiatives, this will be updated and changed to statistics and reports. So please look out for that. However, as of right now, it is still under college initiatives, and you can scroll down to reports. You will see all reports, the number of reports that we've received. This does not mean that this is the actual number of cases that occurred on campus, because we do know that not everyone is going to report for various different reasons that they have at hand. So you can go see how many number of reports we receive on campus up until 2015, which is when our Title IX coordinator started on campus. We also have, again, the New York State law. So New York State Article 129B that puts into place a few different regulations, such as affirmative consent, your student bill of rights, increased education and training, multiple reporting options, and clear and accessible policies in regard to sexual and interpersonal violence. Another thing that we are in charge of on campus is preventing sex and gender discrimination. I want to start off this conversation by letting you know that sex and gender are two different things, and we respect them as such at SUNY Plattsburgh. So gender, when we're referring to gender, can be broken down into three ways. One's gender identity, so how you see yourself and identify yourself. No one else can identify it for you, and that can be either how you identify as a man, whether you identify as a woman, whether you identify as someone who's non-binary, someone that's gender non-conforming, and the list goes on and on. There are various different gender identities, and I invite you all to explore them and learn a lot more about them throughout your time here at SUNY Plattsburgh. And I'm going to tell you ways that you can do that as well. Ways that we practice gender identity and gender expressions is through asking people what their pronouns are. Right? So for myself, I go by she, her, and hers pronouns. We really want to normalize the use of pronouns in conversations because they respect people, they respect their names, they respect everyone just allowing to live the life that they deserve to live and that they have the rights to. It's also important to know that one's gender expression may not match our perceived expectations and our perceived gender identity that we are assuming of them. So you always want to be mindful of just asking someone, if you're not someone that's trying to put someone else in danger and you're truly wanting to know in order to respect them, what one's pronouns are, as well as what their gender expression is, so that you're able to identify them properly. You also have gender roles and actions, and chances are many of you can think of times that you've heard different stereotypes as it relates to genders and ways that society has tried to place us in a box. Examples of that can be hearing, oh, boys will be boys, or they just act like that, or boys don't cry, or girls and women are overly emotional, right? So those are different stereotypes that we hear that we know aren't really true at all. We know boys do cry and there's nothing wrong with that. We know that boys and men should be held responsible for all of their actions, as well as women and anyone in general. And we also know that anyone can cook and anyone can clean and everyone has the right to do and live as they choose. So it's very important for you to know the difference between sex and gender as you navigate your time here at SUNY Plattsburgh, because you want to make sure that you're respecting everyone properly. So increasing, talking about gender and LGBTQ+, we have resources here at SUNY Plattsburgh. You can find almost everyone on the webpage and or on Instagram. So we have a student club known as the LGBTQ+ Student Union that is led through the Student Association. You can find them on Instagram. Platts QSU is currently what their name is. You can also find them through the website of the school. You can also contact the LGBTQ+ Resource Committee at SUNY Plattsburgh, which is for faculty, staff, and students, and it's community-led, so really all of us working together in order to create change on campus. You can contact myself or the coordinator for multicultural initiatives for more information. There's also a gender-inclusive bathroom map if you ever have questions about which bathrooms you can use, or even if you feel like, hey, I went into this bathroom and I was discriminated against. We'll talk a little bit about a bias reporting form, but there is a map that you can access online, and we have a chosen name policy. This is accessible to anyone regardless of what your gender identity and or membership into the LGBTQ+ community is. You can change your name on campus and have it reflected on your student ID, have it reflected on your email address, have it reflected in your Moodle page, and a few other places. If you have questions about it, again, check out our Title IX webpage and find out more and find out the process that you would have to go through in order to change your name. So now going into definitions that we follow under campus. So number one would be interpersonal violence. Whenever you hear this term, you want to think of it as an umbrella term for things such as dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. You also want to think about when you're navigating campus and understanding that campus judicial policies do not always align with criminal justice policy. We work very closely together. However, there are some differences. For instance, dating violence is anyone whom one has had or currently has a relationship with, whether that be sexual in nature or just romantic, or just a relationship in any kind of form. You do not have to live with the individual. It just has to be a relationship that both parties understand. As well as domestic violence, which is the difference where you may not know it as the criminal process. Domestic violence is anyone whom one cohabitates with, so anyone who you live with. So if you're feeling as though you're in a dangerous situation within your roommates and it's hostile and you're not able to navigate your room properly, and you've tried to go through your CAs and communicate with them and figure out what the solutions are and it didn't work, we have accommodations, and this can be considered a domestic violence situation. So you want to make sure you're speaking up and that you feel like you have us to rely on. We also have stalking, which is calling, texting, and following, or any form of contact through third parties. Next, we have sexual violence, which, similar to interpersonal violence, is an umbrella term. So whenever you hear that, you want to think of things such as sexual assault, which is someone touching, fondling, kissing, or making out and making contact with any form of intimate part of your body without consent. We're going to discuss consent a little bit later on in this presentation. We also have rape, which is a penetration, no matter how slight, of vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without, again, the consent of the individual. Other things included in sexual violence is sexual harassment. So as we mentioned earlier, this definition has shifted a little bit with Title IX policy. However, we work very closely with those definitions. So any kind of unwelcome, inappropriate behavior that's sexual in nature, again, whether it be verbal or nonverbal, or it's just physical contact, and you may see this or hear about this often talked about in the workplace. However, it can happen wherever else you are. So you want to make sure that you know if you're feeling uncomfortable about going to a professor's walk-in hours or meeting with your CA or meeting with a supervisor, right? You want to make sure that you know, again, you can report that to our office. We also have sexual exploitation, which is against our policies, which is tampering with or the removal of condoms or other methods of birth control and STIs without consent, as well as non-consensual video or audio taping of sexual activity. This is also portionally known as revenge porn, which is, again, illegal in New York State. A lot of these things all include not having the consent of the individual. So if you are sharing videos with your friends of nudes that you got or explicit photos, that's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that. If we have knowledge of that happening, that is, again, against our policies at SUNY Plattsburgh. So far, things that we've covered, we talked about who's works in the office. We've talked about the laws and the definitions. Now, because we know the definitions, we're going to teach you how to report on campus, as well as the accommodations available and your rights as students under 129B, New York State law. So number one way to report on campus is anonymous. You can report on behalf of yourself, on behalf of someone else, on behalf of a stranger. And I cannot tell you how many times that anonymous reporting sometimes really helps the office in the fact that you are allowed to put as much or as little information as you want. You can also choose whether or not you would like to be contacted after you've submitted the form. But this is important because it's an option, because sometimes you're solving a piece in the puzzle that we didn't know about, or we've heard something, but we don't have as much information. And now your anonymous report has really helped us solve a situation at hand. So important to note, though, that this is checked during our business hours throughout the week and sometimes on the weekends. So if it is an emergency and something of dire need, please call 911 and or University Police. In addition to our anonymous reporting form, we also have confidential resources on campus. So anyone wishing to report confidentially has to go to the counseling center, the health center. On-campus advocates, we work, again, closely with Stop Domestic Violence, which is a local organization, as well as Sexual Assault Services. This semester, they will not be physically on campus. However, you can reach them through telehealth as well as their 24/7 hotline. And they can do things such as go with you to the hospital if you need. They can provide financial support if a situation's at hand. They can provide support for your pets if you need any extra care. They provide a lot of different things in addition to counseling. So again, these are advocates that we work very closely with within the community. Another confidential resource is our ward hall. They have student counseling that is also available. And then we have our official and or known as private resources, and we'll talk about the difference because it's very important that you understand there is a difference between private resources and confidential and what that is. So private, again, will be reporting to our office, Butterfly Blaze Boyer, or University Police, and or any New York State law enforcement agency. One reason that they are considered private within themselves is because if they have a case and they're working closely together, they're going to have to communicate about that case. And therefore, the situation is no longer confidential, it is private. They're only communicating with themselves on a need-to-know basis. You also have responsible employees. So if you are living in a residence hall, your CAs and your CDs, community advocates and community directors, they're considered responsible employees. They are required by our policies to share any information that they have about an incident with our office. This also includes athletic coaches, if you're someone who's going to be a student athlete, academic advisors, and clubs and organization leaders. Other things that it's important to know is that even if they're your friends or, you know, it's a situation going on and you don't want them to share anything, they are obligated to share the information with our office. However, because they are obligated to share information with our office does not mean that one is pressing formal charges. It solely means that we have the information and we have to make sure that we communicate with the individual to ensure that they feel as though they have the resources and accommodation needed in order to still succeed at SUNY Plattsburgh. So again, a little bit more about the differences between privacy and confidentiality. On your left-hand side, again, this includes our Title IX coordinators, university police, your CAs, your CDs. They are considered private because they are required to just limit the disclosure of your case and your situation as much as possible. The only time they are allowed to speak about it is if they're a part of an investigation or a part of seeking a resolution in order to notify our Title IX coordinator or anyone else on campus who is tracking patterns as well as understanding. They are also private if there are someone who is getting you the resources. For example, if our office, if you need counseling, we're going to call the counseling center and get you in a room so that you can have emergency counseling available. Then again, we have the confidential, so student health centers, student counseling center, our campus advocates. They are confidential legally by law. They are not allowed to share any information unless they have written permission from you and or there are immediate circumstances where you're harming to yourself or at harm to someone else. So again, important to understand the difference because this helps us navigate the situations that we have on campus. In addition to our own campus resource, we also have SUNY-wide is a resource. So if you go into academic buildings or if you go into your residential halls, you're going to see it's like black and yellow clings on either mirrors or on windows. This is a SUNY Saver program. This lets you know all of our policies, the campus resource. If you're someone figuring out, what's in my immigration rights, if you need legal resources, this is a one-stop shop of everything you're allowed to figure out about our resources in case you forget. You're also going to be able to figure out what are some extra things that you need in terms of support at any point in time. This is anonymous. It's available 24/7. You can even see other institutions and other area codes. So even if you want to look and you're like, okay, this is a zip code I'm in, how can I find support? You want to make sure that you have the SUNY Saver program bookmarked into your phone or into your internet sites. In addition to the violence at SUNY Plattsburgh, we also have bias acts and hate crimes forum. So we have a team that oversees these programs. If you feel as though you're experiencing discrimination or bias based on your race, based on your age, based on your religion, based on your social economic status, that you're being treated a different way or you're being targeted by any way, we have a reporting form. Again, while it's not anonymous, you can use this form in order to find out the resources that are available to you on campus. If it is an emergency or you feel like your safety is at risk, again, call university police and or 911 so that we can get you help in this situation. So important to know again, and university police would be the office that you find out a lot more from in terms of finding out about the difference between bias acts and hate crimes. But in part, bias acts is adversely and unfairly targeting an individual or a group based on a belief or perception, and these have to do all about your identity. So again, race, ancestry, gender identity, gender expression, your religion, your age, your ability, and so much more. Whether or not it's a verbal incident or it's written, it occurs in the classroom, it's your professor, we do not care. We want to know everything that's happening on campus, again, so that we can respond appropriately and figuring out what's going on. So again, please make sure you are filling out this form. Even if you're not sure, fill out the form. We're going to connect with you in order to get you that resources and be able to talk it through and figure out a little bit more about the situation to provide you support. We also have hate crimes, which is defined by New York State. So a person commits a hate crime when he or she commits a specified criminal offense, either intentionally, the act, or unintentionally, has a person, again, targeting them because of their gender, their identity, their race, the color, their ancestry, religion, your age, disability, sexual orientation, again, whether or not that belief or perception is correct. Again, if you want to learn a lot more about hate crimes, please reach out to University Police. They will definitely be able to help you in those situations. So I'm just gonna pause here for any questions that someone may have.
So we have one question. What is the campus police phone number?
So the campus police phone number, and I'll have a slide of a lot of phone numbers that I ask you all to take a picture of. But if you're ready, it's 518-564-2022. So one thing you'll learn about Plattsburgh, area code is always 518. If it's an on-campus number, the next three is always 564. So as a former student and alumna of SUNY Plattsburgh, you'll see often many people just tell you the last four digits, and you're like, what's the rest? So whenever they're doing that, it's because it's always 518-564, and they're telling you the last four digits. And the slogan for University Police is, if you don't know what to do, call 2022. So if you don't remember anything else, remember that, aside from consent, of course. So moving on, we also have a drug and alcohol amnesty policy. So again, we want to make sure that if you are in a situation where you do not feel safe, we want to be able to intervene. If you're in a situation where you feel fine, but you feel like someone else may not be safe, we want to be able to intervene. And the ways that we do this is make sure that you're not getting in trouble if you're in an instance where you're a bystander, but you're under the influence, whether you're under the age of 21 and you're drinking, or you're smoking marijuana, which yes, is still illegal in New York State, regardless of what you think. So we wanna make sure that you know, if you are acting in good faith and you're trying to help someone, we will not bring you up on criminal or student conduct charges for doing that violation of drugs and alcohol because you are helping someone, which again, is our priority, is your safety here at SUNY Plattsburgh. So now accommodations, things that are available to you if you experience violence or you're someone who is accused or responding to an accusation of violence. For one, we have no contact orders. These are somewhat different from restraining orders. We have big policies around them. Again, main premise is that it protects you and you're not allowed to interact with the individual in the situation who may have harmed you or who may have accused you of harm. You're not allowed to go next to them, not allowed to be interacting with them by any means. We also have academic accommodations because we understand the effects of trauma in the way that it really covers a lot of portions of one's life. You may end up missing classes, you may end up missing an exam, you may end up oversleeping. So we have academic accommodations, or even if you are in the same class with someone who may have harmed you, we have the right to move people's class schedules around or make sure your fees to withdraw for classes are not non-existent, are waived. That's what I'm looking for. So academic accommodations as well. We also have emergency housing, which is available to you whether you're an on-campus or off-campus student. We have housing available to the dorms. If you're someone who, again, your safety is at risk, you can come report to our office and we work with housing to make sure you are moved and found safe again. We also have counseling services and health services or medical services. So we contact CVPH, which is our local hospital. If you are someone who needs a SANE exam, you would be going to CVPH. If you need counseling, again, you can go to our on-campus advocates or you can go to our very own counseling center in order to get those resources and connect with someone. So a lot of times people are like, okay, so if I report, what happens? Does that person get in trouble? What are my next steps? So when you report, it does not mean that you are pressing formal charges against someone. You can choose to make a report and say, I want nothing else to do with this situation. I don't want to deal with anything. And that's your right. You can also change your mind. If you would like to change your mind and then you need additional resources, accommodations later, that is your right as well. So we have 3 different processes for anyone who is reported a situation of violence. So number 1 is our Title IX investigation. So again, our Title IX coordinator and our Title IX and non-discrimination investigator would be the ones coordinating that investigation. They're going to meet with you, they're going to meet with the respondent, they're going to meet with witnesses or anyone else who may be involved in the situation. We also have the criminal justice process, which is assisted by local law enforcement agents or university police. And then you have the campus judicial process, which works with the student conduct, who is the office who offers sanctions and so forth for those who may have caused harm to someone else. You can choose 1, you can choose 2, you can choose all 3, or you can choose none. Their choice is up to you to proceed and figure out what process you want. The only time that the institution will move forward in processing a case, even if you say, I do not want anything done, is if we have concerns about the safety of the campus or yourself, if you decided not to leave. So as an institution, we have the right to still proceed, even if you, as someone reporting, does not want to proceed forward. This also we see occur when we have a situation with an individual who has been named several times. So again, we have to act on those kinds of situations to ensure that you are protected. Important thing to note is that our office does not issue sanctions. Our job stops when it comes to issuing accommodations and services, either in that moment where you've come to us or later on, as well as at the investigation. So we report the findings to student conduct, and students such as yourself, this is an opportunity for you. You would be deciding the sanctions of those who may be responding to accusations of sexual violence, interpersonal violence, sex and gender discrimination. There is a process in order to become a board member. If you have information, again, go to the website, type in student conduct into the search bar, and their website is going to come up. You can also email them at studentconduct@plattsburgh.edu. They'll talk to you about the trainings that you have to do and what the process looks like. So as mentioned, as students, you also have your Bill of Rights that we have to follow and give you. And there are 11 of them outlined by New York State 129B. So again, making sure that you can report to any law enforcement agency, whether it's the ones locally or not, making sure any of your cases are taken seriously, making a decision whether or not you want to disclose. So again, if you go to a responsible employee, they have to tell you before you start disclosing your incident that if they report to you, they are required to tell, but you have confidential reporting options. Again, you have the right to participate in the process or not. The choice is up to you. You would meet with our office and student conduct so that they can tell you what that looks like, because there are new changes under the new regulations in that process. However, at the end of the day, the process must be fair and impartial and provide notice and opportunities to be heard. These rights are to all students, again, whether you are someone who has experienced violence or someone who is responding to an accusation of violence. You also must be treated with dignity and be able to receive healthcare and counseling services, all parties involved. You also must be free from any suggestion that you as a reporting individual was at fault. So any form of victim blaming, we are not allowed to do by any means, or even that if you feel as though if something may have been different. It is never, ever, ever your fault if you have experienced violence at any form. It is not your responsibility to take up that onus. It is on the person who has harmed you. It is always their fault. So you also have to describe the incident to as few institutional representatives as practical. So again, making sure we are not re-traumatizing anyone a part of the process in order to proceed forward and having the information. Last four, be free from retaliation, whether that be from the institution itself, whether it be from the individuals at hand, their friends, their families, their acquaintances, as well, even after the process is completed, still free from retaliation. You have the right to an appeal. So if you're going through a process and you have questions or you do not like the outcome of the situation, you have the right to appeal the decision with student conduct, and they will talk you through that as well. As mentioned earlier, you have the right to be accompanied by an advisor of your choice who may assist and advise throughout the entire process. So when you come to our office, when you go to student conduct, when you meet with the investigator, you have the right for the individual to be there. Important to note is that the main function of the Title IX office for the fall 2020 semester will be taking appointments for reports. However, on a need basis, we will be doing walk-ins as well. So we will do our best not to turn people away. However, we want to make sure that we're practicing social distancing and being safe when taking reports as well. We also have to exercise your civil rights in your practice of religion without interference of the case. So if you are someone who some part of the case is going to fall on your religious holiday, we have an obligation to move that date to make sure it accommodates you in your civil rights and your religious practices. All right, so we're almost at the end. So we have now officially covered your staff introductions, your laws and definitions, your reporting options, accommodations, student bill of rights, and now we're going to head into affirmative consent and involvement opportunities. I'm also just going to pause here in case there are any questions that anyone may have had based on the information that they've learned so far.
We do not have any questions at this time.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about affirmative consent. So now I want your brain to really start buzzing about what is consent, when do you hear it, how often do you hear it, what does it look like? All things that should be coming up part of your head is that it's required no matter what. It has a lot to do with communication. It has to be safe for everyone, and it has to be fun. Consent can be fun. It should be a part, it should be natural. It should not be forced in any way. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna watch this video, which is a really funny video. However, I'm just also going to put a content disclaimer, so feel free to step away if you need a break. It does use stick figures to talk about consent and talk about sexual assault and highlighting the different ways that sexual assault looks through tea. So I'm gonna start the video for you all.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, fuck yes, I would fucking love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please. That's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't.
Oops, sorry.
If you're still struggling with consent,
My bad.
then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please. That's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, "But you wanted tea last week." Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
All right, so now going a little bit more into detail about consent and what that looks like. And I think it's really important to highlight why this conversation is so important. And we also have a whole separate workshop where we spend the time solely talking about consent, because we think that it's common sense, but it's not. There are a lot of people who make a lot of assumptions when it comes to any time that they're physically interacting with people, because in a lot of ways, we have normalized touching people and not respecting boundaries in society. So we also want to have the conversation about this so that we can really be very clear about what consent looks like and what respecting boundaries of others looks like. So for one, consent, affirmative consent in New York State is knowingly, voluntarily, in a mutual decision between all parties to engage in the sexual activity. And when we say sexual activity, this is not just talking about sex. This is any kind of times where you may be invading someone's personal space in a sexual nature. So even if you are planning on making out and kissing someone, right? Consent is still needed there. You still need to make sure that person wants you to be making out with them. Even if you're at a party and you're trying to dance with someone, although you shouldn't be having any COVID parties, but if you're at a party and you're really trying to dance with someone, right? Consent is still needed there. You need to ask people if they would like to dance. And you don't have to do it as if it's the 1920s, but there's nothing wrong with that either, right? So you wanna, again, make sure that is clear. Another thing that's important to know, it is not required to be verbal. It can be given through words or actions as long as it is clear permission that there is a willingness to engage in the behavior. And the reason that is because we want to be inclusive. We want to consider those who may be mute. We want to consider those that may have different developmental abilities or just different abilities in general. So you want to be mindful that it does not always have to be verbal. Yes, but you want to make sure that you understand that their body language is very important as well. Another reason that this is important to highlight is because many only know responding to it to be the notion of, oh, well, the person would just fight me off. And that's not the case. Really, it's not. Many people experience and react to trauma very differently. We know about fight and flight. However, there's also freeze, which is another common reaction that is forgotten when we're talking about fight and flight. So freezing is a common reaction that is how people respond to trauma, and you want to be mindful of it, that someone may not fight you off. However, that is why it's so important to make sure you have clear communication and you're recognizing body language and words if applicable. It also cannot be coerced. So you cannot assume that someone wants to have these kinds of relationship with you based on the relationship that you have with them. It also cannot be through intimidation or peer pressure. You can't make someone feel as though, oh, well, everyone's doing it, so why don't you do it? Or, you know, well, if you love me, you would be doing this, right? That is a form of coercion. It does not matter based on one's identity. You cannot threaten them. So important to know that coercion is more than just the notion that we see often of, oh, I'm just going to put a gun to someone's head. That's not only what coercion looks like. Another thing that's important to note is the cultural differences in our understandings being different on campus and through colleges across the nation, right? So we had a big time where in society it was like Netflix and chill was like everything, and that's what everyone's doing. But then people didn't realize that not everyone understood what Netflix and chill meant. People did not think that it was just a way to engage in sexual activity without asking. And that's why it's so important, because that could be a form of coercion. If someone set up boundaries with you and was like, hey, like, you want to watch movies tonight, and then all of a sudden you try to take it to another level, that can be a form of coercion. You want to make sure that there is clear understanding that this is what all parties engaged want to be doing every step of the way, and that there's no hesitation. Everyone's going to be enjoying themselves. It has to be active. So it has to be in the moment understanding. So some things that the video highlights is that if a person falls asleep, right, no longer is it active. You need to make sure that that person is awake, is conscious. If a person agrees and then changes their mind, they're allowed to do that. Active also means every step of the way. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not just about sex, right? If you're trying to elevate from making out to now, okay, well, now I want to have oral sex, or now I want to have penetration, right? All steps of the way. Just because one is okay with one does not mean one is okay with the other. Every step of the way, you need to be checking in and making sure they're involved and they want to be moving to the next step with you. The silence or lack of resistance, again, does not mean and does not demonstrate consent. You want to make sure that you are communicating with them every step of the way, and that is clear. It is also the responsibility of the person initiating, right? So this does not matter if someone's under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Oftentimes I see the conversation of, okay, well, what if we're both drunk? Whoever initiated the sexual content, that's who matters. That is the person who's going to have to say, this is what I did, this is how I knew, and this is what we were doing, this is what we both understood to be true. You are going to be the one who has to stand up and defend every situation of the way. This is important because previously it used to be on everyone thinking, okay, well, they didn't say no. This changes that onus to be on the person who initiated the context. It does not matter, again, if you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. It can be withdrawn at any point in time if a person changes their mind. If a person doesn't want tea anymore, they fall asleep, they're unconscious. If a person agreed to sexual relations on Saturday and today's Thursday, and Saturday comes and they don't want it anymore, it's over. You cannot engage in it. Cannot be given when a person's incapacitated. So a lot of people believe that you have to be sober in order to give consent. That's not true under the affirmative consent definition in New York State. You, however, cannot be incapacitated. Incapacitation, though, looks different for everyone. And this is why it's very important to understand not only what your limits are, but what someone else's limits are as well as the age of someone and what makes someone not be able to engage in activities. So for example, someone slurring their words, someone being asleep, someone in and out of consciousness, someone involuntarily restrained, someone who has, again, mental disabilities that may be unable to consent, as well as someone who is under the age of consent in New York State. I'll just give you a second to guess what that is. 17. 17 is the answer. Anyone under the age of 17, that would be statutory rape in New York State. So again, you do not have to be sober. However, you cannot be incapacitated. You can also be incapacitated from medication. So be very mindful of those that you're engaging with and the degree of intoxication that someone may have. So wrapping up, we have a lot of different ways to be involved on campus. I know this was a lot of information to gain in just an hour. However, you can learn a lot more by following us on Facebook, following us on Instagram. The information, the contact information is on the right-hand side of the screen. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We made one out of COVID, and we'll be having a lot of our events up there on YouTube and going live. So please definitely join us. If you're someone looking for internship opportunities, reach out to me, let me know. I want to get you involved. We also have peer educator programs, bystander intervention programs. One Love is a national organization that focuses on relationship and dating violence. So if you want more information on that, they have student ambassadors. I can get you involved with that. Again, attending events, and if you are someone who is in charge of clubs or organizations on campus, collaborate with us. I love to collaborate with students and really getting involved. As mentioned earlier, this is now the time that if you have your phone, please take your phone and take a picture of this screen. These are a lot of communications and numbers that are important for you to have. This is not an all exhaustive list. You will receive almost and still not even an all exhaustive list either on Sunday or Monday when we receive an email from our Title IX coordinator. You also will receive all of our events that we currently have planned out for the semester. Please review the list, join us. Again, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I would love to connect with you all. I'm also just gonna stop and allow for any questions that someone has here as well. But please take a picture of the screen as you're joining us.
So Zyaijah, we do not have any questions at this point.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, you're seeing my screen. I'm going to add to the, chat the contact information for myself as well as our Google form based on the presentation that you've received today. I'm going to share the screen so that you can still, if you didn't get a chance to take the pictures, take it. But please fill out the Google form. We want to know what your thoughts were about the presentation. If there are any questions that you have, anything you want to learn more information about, again, let us know. We want to help you as much as possible during your time here. So please fill out the form. I'll take any remaining questions that happen, but that is the rest of the presentation. Thank you all for joining us. That's all I got.